many of you do not know me. You may have heard my name before, but you do not know me. Sometimes I wonder if it even matters if you know me. What impact did I have on the world? What was my significance? Why did I even exist? Well, if you've ever read a book, newspaper or pamphlet, you should be interested in what I have to say. This is my life story. I am Johann Gutenberg. I will tell you a little bit about my life. To start, nobody knows when I was born, but most think it was around 1400. It is certain, however, that I was born in Mainz, Germany. It is right here. Due to peasant unrest, my family had to move to Strasbourg. We were part of the middle class, so I could go to school. Our family was never very wealthy, definitely not nobility. I tried a few different professions. I was a goldsmith, metalworker, and I even made mirrors for a pilgrimage once. Eventually, though, I moved back to Mainz and began working in secret on an idea I had. I took out an extremely large loan from a wealthy merchant named Johann Fust. This was to pay for my expenses while inventing and printing. Paper was quite an expensive commodity. I combined a wine press with some handmade blocks of letters, and I made this machine. Here I present the first movable type printing press. The real genius here lies in these blocks, which can be arranged and rearranged to print anything. The first thing I printed was, of course, a Bible. It is called the Gutenberg Bible by many. It took me 2 years to print 180 Bibles. I showed a finished one to some nobility, and before I could finish printing, they sold out. The future Pope Pius II said of the printed Bible, "It could be read without difficulties and without spectacles." Anyway, they were a huge hit. Now you must realize that before this time, it took a monk or scribe about 3 years to copy just one Bible by hand. This caused books to be very expensive. Many towns or villages might only have one Bible. My printing press allowed many identical copies of publications to be produced quickly. Printing presses sprouted up everywhere. Well, not exactly like that. But they were soon everywhere, printing everything. Indulgences, pamphlets, calendars, newspapers, and of course books. Unfortunately, Johann Fust was a greedy backstabber, and shortly after my success he sued me. He said I hadn't used all his money the way he had wanted. He won, and since I could not pay back the debt, he took over my printing shop. Despite this huge disappointment, I lived the rest of my life in relative comfort, because the Archbishop of Mainz sponsored me and took me in. Fust, however, continued to print many things. But he was no longer the only one. Many other print shops opened.
Hello, I am Will Vienna. After watching Gutenberg's life story, I decided to meet him myself and try to convince him of his historical importance. Here is the interview.
Hello, Herr Gutenberg. I'm so glad you had some time to meet with me.
For the last 500 years, I've had nothing but time. Plus, everybody wants to know their legacy. If the life or work really mattered.
I'll start my story with the time soon after your death. I'm referring to the Protestant Reformation.
Protestant Reformation?
Oh, whoops. I forgot. I guess I need to be a little more explicit. As you know, the first thing that happened after your printing press was established was the large-scale printing of indulgences. For those of us in the 21st century, indulgences were issued by the Pope and gave the buyer a shortened time spent in purgatory for certain sins.
I know what indulgences are. I printed a large order of them for the King of Cyprus in 1454.
Well, you weren't the only one. They were printed in huge quantities. People were worried about a possible invasion by the Ottoman Empire and bought many indulgences to prepare themselves to meet their maker. This huge increase in indulgences caused a priest named Martin Luther to publish his 95 Theses in early 1500. These theses were complaints against the Catholic Church. The use of indulgences was one of the listed complaints. Your printing press ensured that Luther's 95 Theses and sermons were quickly reprinted, circulated, and heard by a large audience. Your printing press also allowed Luther to quickly print his German translation of the New Testament. 3,000 copies were printed in 5 months. By 1534, there were over 500,000 Bibles in circulation.
Everybody could now read and understand the Bible for themselves. I can see why the established church didn't like that very much.
Yes, they outlawed Luther's works, but they were still printed and spread, eventually leading to the Protestant Reformation, a new Christian church completely independent of Rome. Europe was now divided into Protestants and Catholics.
I cannot believe that my printing press split the church. That is awful. What have I done?
Well, if the Reformation wasn't a positive event in your opinion, then the Enlightenment will be. The Enlightenment was a period between 1690 and 1789 where 3 generations of philosophers discussed radical new ideas and tried to form the perfect society. Each philosopher had different ideas. Thomas Hobbes supported dictatorship, while many others were encouragers of a democracy or republic. Many of these philosophers lived in Paris, but their ideas spread quickly across Europe and even over the ocean to the New World, America. Your printing press allowed these ideas to be spread widely over a relatively short amount of time. The Enlightenment had little immediate effect on the status quo of the era in Europe, but it really took off in the American colonies. With the leadership across the ocean, the printing press allowed these radical new ideas of equal rights for all men to spread throughout the disparate colonies and unify them under the banner of independence. The Enlightenment ideas were fertilized well in this new world and blossomed.
What is this America? What about these colonies? Are they somewhere in Asia?
No. The American continent was discovered in 1492, not long after your death. There were 13 British colonies in 1763 and very diverse. By 1776, many colonies had complaints against the British Crown and wanted reform. In January of 1776, Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense, which labeled King George III as a tyrant and encouraged the colonies to go to war. Thanks to your printing press, his pamphlet was quickly reprinted and distributed in the colonies. George Washington, the future first president of the United States, even said that it was working powerful change in the minds of many men. This pamphlet led to the Declaration of Independence in 1776 and greatly helped unify the colonies. This was due to the implementation of Enlightenment ideas, spread to the colonies so far and so fast by your printing press. The quick spread of the Federalist Papers in 1787 also had a huge impact on the United States of America. They garnered huge support for the Constitution, which is still used today. Were the Federalist Papers and Common Sense not delivered so quickly to so many, the United States would not be the democracy it is today, with the oldest surviving governing documents.
Ach, wow! My printing press played a far more important role than I ever thought. Look, even you have a large library, which in my time would have belonged to a king. Are you extremely rich?
No. My mother is a bit of a bibliophile, but I wouldn't say that this is an unusually large personal collection of books. Herr Gutenberg, your life's work played a major role in history. You created an entirely new method of communication. For centuries after your death, the printing press was the only method of mass communication. A modified form of it is still widely used today. Even with many new technological innovations like TV, radio, and internet, as you can see, many books are still published and newspapers are still popular. Jeff Bezos, the founder and chief executive officer of modern internet superstore Amazon, said, "Music and video have been digital for a long time, and short-form reading has been digitized, beginning with the early web. But long-form reading really hasn't."
Thank you, Mr. Viana, for your interest and your time. I feel much more important now. My life really did have major significance. It seems that people still recognize me as the inventor of mass information as well as the printed books your bibliophiles love so much.